Hey, I'm Vishal Krishna. Thank you for being on this podcast. We are Mentor for Kids. It's called the Disha series. It's brought to you by BCL India. And we'd like you to like and subscribe our YouTube channel and also enjoy this podcast and ask questions, because this podcast is built for you, because BCom students have to be employable. Big data. There are 6 million BCom graduates every year and only 2 lakh of them, or 200,000, get jobs. And we want to improve that. We want to move the needle. And hence we're doing this. So we've got our special guest today. We've got Vijayshree ma'am. Vijayshree ma'am is from Uber, and she specializes in international tax laws, US tax. And she's been razor sharp focused on that subject for the last 25 years. Hi ma'am, how are you?
Hi, nice, thank you.
Thank you for being here. And I'm a BCom student, and I was unemployed for 1 year. And I wish I'd known back then that you didn't have to do any MBA or MBA marketing, MBA finance, but you could. But there are enough jobs to do. You take your BCom subject towards, right?
Yeah.
I want to talk about you. You passed through Vijay College way back in 2000.
Yes.
And you immediately got into these big four?
That's really not true.
Not true?
No.
That was later?
4 years after that.
4 years after.
Yes.
And it was EY, wasn't it?
EY, yes.
Okay. And you focused on international tax.
Yes.
So let's talk about that interim between you graduating and,
Yes.
what did you do the first 4 years upon graduating? Because the reason I'm doing this is getting them prepared to what
Right.
can they do after college.
Right. As you rightly said, finding those right jobs are not easy, so especially for commerce students or BCom students, right? So in the interim, from the time I passed, that was in 2000, until I joined EY was in 2004.
Correct.
I did not sit at home, right? So I started working. I wanted to get exposure to some corporate world, how companies work or how organization works. So I did work in smaller companies, like where you look after accounting or counseling children for some courses into, that time it was very heavy on the software courses.
Yes.
So I spent about 2 years doing that.
You did
Right.
a software course as well?
I did software course, but then I was counseling students too. Like, it was nothing relating to what I studied.
But you kept yourself busy.
But I kept myself busy and also kept a watch on what are the opportunities that kept coming in this world. And as I said, the US international tax was one of the topics that was very, very new at that time. It was like something that nobody had done in the past, and it is a complex subject, right? Tax, first of all, being very complex. And US tax is something that we don't learn in college or schools. Yeah. It was something that was very fascinating. And as you said, like, I started my career with EY, I interviewed, and then, so while I interviewed with EY, we did not require any special experience in terms of, because that was a start, like EY, Deloitte and companies
Correct.
like this were setting up.
But then you'd done any articleship or anything?
No, I had not done anything. I am a pure BCom graduate.
That's so good to hear.
Yes, I later in part of my career, I did certain other certification that was required for my job.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah, but at the start of my career, I was a purely BCom graduate.
That is so hardening. I mean, back then I remember when we passed BCom, we'd probably get audit jobs, right?
Right.
That's all. And the subject, you're right, we had mercantile law, we had auditing, we had company law, we had business communications, and then we had management accounting and financial accounting. Those are the subjects, I think, right?
Yes.
And then English and English, right? If you remember, or Kannada, if you took Kannada, right? There was no exposure to international law, international tax or law, and the fact that Bangalore was growing then, right? How did you catch that subject?
Well, it's, as I said, like, it was an opportunity. Back then there was not much emphasis on posting jobs online. It was more like on the Wednesday's newspaper, if you recollect, you get that Wednesday, the jobs.
Classifieds.
Yes. There was this ad, a very huge, like, I think a half-page ad with EY that had come in. And I did send, it was just, they had finished the recruitment at that point. They had it was a backdated newspaper that I was looking at, and the end date of that application was over. But however, I just sent my resume across in the email ID that they mentioned, right? I just sent across, and when they were hiring the next time, maybe after a month or so, I got a call from EY saying that, can you come, and they had a written test, of course, to start off with, to ensure that whoever they were hiring knows the basics of accounting, English, and basic other things. But then what I'm trying to say here is, just because some opportunity you were not able to get it at the right time, there's no harm in trying. Like, it was just that I just sent it at the time.
And they called you.
Yes.
Do you remember your first interview?
Well, the first time it was just a written test. They called a number of students or number of employees.
So it was communication
candidates.
the test that you want.
It was communication and basics of basically English and accounting basics and tax basics, like what we learn in school or college, like basics of taxation, what is direct tax, or some basics like that.
And did you clear that ACIT, or was it very nervous, or maybe because you worked in a smaller company?
Yes.
For the first 4 years, did that help you?
It was fascinating to enter into a corporate world, to see the office, even just for an interview, right? So it did. I was a little bit nervous.
Was it on Level Road?
No, that was
there?
EY India.
Yeah.
So this was the EY GSS, what we call it.
Yes.
It's a global service center.
Correct.
Wherein you operate for the whole of the other countries other than India. So this was in Banshankari back then. I don't know if you're aware of the Mindtree building.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is in the same building. Now they've moved it. But the first process was on a Sunday or a Saturday, they called for a written test. They were like hundreds of candidates. And I was like, maybe I will not make it, because, they were much better than me. The communication or the way people presented themselves in that so it was much better. I was like, maybe there's no harm in trying, and I did do the test, and then I was called for an interview. Back then, the interview was rightly happening with the then CEO, Sharda Shervu, and Mr. Giridhar, who's the COO. So now, that time it was just like we kicked off with about 100 candidates, and that was the start of that. Before us, there were very few members working there.
Okay, it was like they were scaling at that time.
Yes, right now I think there are about tens of thousands, but we were about
I think the last I heard,
200.
most over 30,000. I
Yes,
think the GCC they call it now, something like that. Yes.
So I did interview with the leaders of the company at that point, and it was definitely overwhelming for me to talk to someone at that level. But then it was just the confidence and the communication. I think that would help.
Is that because you also read a lot?
Yeah.
And your communication of English was fluent, and that's what they liked.
Yes. So it was also to stay on top of what is going on in the world, right? Like, there may be a lot of opportunities which you may not be aware if you're not reading, if you're not being on top of what is happening in the news. So it was like more of reading, and while I was working in those other jobs, I kept on watching about what is happening in the world. Yes, I did feel that at one point you were mentioning about people who did CAs got really well settled, and people who did not do that.
Yeah, they had a very difficult time.
Correct. So I did think that maybe I should have done CA back then, but then I don't regret that decision now.
I'm glad. And it's interesting, she discovered a job in a newspaper.
Yes.
So with so much information, you guys should be able to discover a job faster.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to come into Uber straight away. There's so much about Uber that I want to talk about. I want to talk about how did you prepare for that subject? Were there mentors for you in discussing international, finance?
Yeah.
I mean, and it's a very tricky subject because you have governments involved. That means there's a level of policy and law that you have to understand.
Yes.
And then there's
it's very
numbers.
dynamic.
Yes,
right?
It's very dynamic.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you have a mentor from day one?
So I'll tell you how it worked in the past, and somewhere even now that happens because as in India we don't have these subjects taught very well in colleges.
Yes.
So when anybody is hired for these roles, especially for a starting position as maybe an analyst or that level, they go through a good amount of training for a month, 2 months, 3 months. I think max about 3 months. When I joined EY, it was about 3 months. All we did was just training. It was more like a college at that time. We did go through rigorous training of, how do you, what are the tax concepts? What are book to tax adjustments? Why is gap and differences?
Back then itself?
Yes.
Wow.
And one best thing what happened back then was we were made to do the tax return by hand. and that made my basics very strong. At this point,
We made you write?
yes, we were given like, okay, these are the assets and this was the depreciation and this was gain loss and this was the revenue.
So you had to make book entries?
We don't have to make book entries, but we had to prepare a tax. So there was a trial balance.
Correct.
And then some data additional apart from
Yes.
the trial balance given, like this is the tax depreciation, book depreciation. And then we had to use that data to prepare the tax return by hand. And it's not easy. US tax is not easy
Yes.
at all. So doing that really helped us.
Right.
Very, very strong in basics is like only when you do it like from the ground level.
What
up
are the
to,
basics, would you say, in this subject?
understanding what exactly is so there are some tax concepts.
Yeah, I
maybe.
would love them to hear it. And
Yeah.
please.
So I am not sure in your chartered accounting whatever you
Firm,
work
yeah,
here, whether there are concepts like book to tax. I'm sure it is
It
the
will
same
be there,
concept,
yes.
right? So book to tax adjustments are something like where you have your books are trial balance, and then your taxes, like sometimes you allow depreciation based on a certain method for books, but for tax purposes there is predetermined and already a law that says that you have to follow only 5 years for this type of assets, or a 3 year for a software, or a 7 year for fixtures and furniture. So the depreciation on book and tax will differ.
So the different types of calculating depreciation, that's taught to us in college.
Yes.
We learned that in college
Yes.
also.
Yeah.
So they taught that.
So that
in
is
rigorous
tax
manner, yeah.
depreciation versus
Yeah.
book depreciation.
Yes.
So there are differences in both of these,
Right.
though it is depreciation.
Correct.
So you either adjust your by increasing that adjustment or
Yeah.
decreasing the adjustment. So we do that by hand. So we were given that data and we did it by hand, and these are called as M1 adjustments for US tax purposes.
Okay.
Wherein this is one example. There are many
You would do this for
adjustments.
clients?
Yes, yes.
That's interesting. So you were thrust into the client atmosphere from day one.
No, not from day one.
From
After
3
the
months. After 3 months,
yes.
you were put in.
Yes, after the 3 months, we do for the clients. And
Don't mention the name of the clients.
Yeah.
But do you remember which client? I mean, or what industry that you were pushed into for an international tax
So,
tax
as a-
finance perspective?
as I started, so even in US tax, there are various areas. One is international
Correct.
tax. Individual taxation, where
yes.
you do for only individuals,
For people
like
who
high
live
net
more
worth.
than 180 days there versus how many
Yes,
days within the
inpat
country.
and expat
Yes.
taxation,
Correct.
like people going from India to US,
Yeah.
or people coming from US to India are impats, and
Yes.
going from here to the US is expats. So I first started working on that for a very large company which is based in the US and also has a base in India.
Okay.
So there were like we could see like clients, all the data we were given, and then we had to prepare those tax returns based on like this 180
Yes.
days rule, whether they apply into a non-resident
Yeah.
or a resident type of a return.
And the type of visa that they have, and the
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
all. Because I lived in the US for a while, and I had to come back on the 170th the day, because after
Oh,
180 you
yes.
end up paying tax
Right.
there, right?
Otherwise, you'll have to file a resident
Resident
return.
tax, yes.
So yeah, that was my first gig into like doing taxes myself.
Okay. How
And then
interesting
we
was
did
that?
have we did have our seniors who were helping us, like
Uh-huh.
who joined before us. They were like pros in doing this, and at that time a lot of people from the US office came to India just for training purposes.
And would you run into those individuals? You'd meet them personally, or would it be the CFOs of those organizations or the finance people of those organizations would enable you with data?
We wouldn't meet those clients.
Okay.
So at that point, it was more like the US office interacts
Yes.
with the client
Yes.
and would send us the data to
Okay.
India. But now things have changed, wherein people from India are directly interacting
Mm-hmm.
with the clients in the US.
Okay.
So that was just a start.
Okay. And the pressures that a lot of people talk about work-life balance. I mean,
Yes.
and obviously there's this thing around. I mean, we all follow the internet, so now everyone talks about 75 hours plus work week.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those days I could vouch for that number, because as a young writer back then, because jobs were new. I mean, our families
Yes.
wanted us to work.
Yeah.
And we wanted to prove ourselves. I used to work 75 plus hours. It looked normal to me.
Yes, it
And,
did.
you know,
and it was normal.
It
I
was
feel,
normal, right?
for us to build that career. I don't want to scare anyone.
Yeah,
but
we're not
yes,
scaring anybody. We enjoyed
but,
it.
Yes, but it is important that you give that time. There's, I wouldn't say there is like no work-life balance. There is, but there are seasons, right, when you're very heavy on work
Yeah.
and you have to get that. Like if you're working in any of the consulting firms, you have to deliver it to your client. Or if you're working in a industry like where you're doing it for your own company, you still have to file because these are statutory deadlines,
Right.
and there's a lot of work that goes into like preparing this. So it does take that time, and sometimes the work-life balance is compromised. But I think at the starting point of your career, if you invest in your self-learning,
get
I
to
think
learn
it will really take you a long way.
I agree. And when did you move from the individual filing of tax
Yes.
to the corporate thing, which is a beast?
So there you do rotations. So as I said, there are seasons. There are seasons for individual tax, which is very busy period for the individual tax returns itself, and then there is a busy period for the corporate tax.
Right.
So that time only I did work in individual tax probably for a year or so, and then I moved into corporate taxation, and that was more interesting. I felt more connected into like understanding the trial balances, because in individual you don't have trial
Correct, you
balances
don't,
and things
yes.
like that. So I did spend more time in corporate taxation after
taxation,
1 year, and I spent throughout from then on I've been working on corporate.
Okay, how different you moved from a consulting company
Yes.
to a large product company. Let's say I won't name them. You can name them if you want. When you moved there is a difference, right? Most of these large product companies would look at India as a sales and marketing center,
Yeah.
or they'd look at it as a development center, and then you have the US office itself sending people, for strategic
Yes.
reasons.
Yeah.
What were some of the things that you learned from that perspective of handling people of different stakeholders there?
It is very different. It is very, though the work is same, the way you interact or the way you have to manage the work is different, because while you're working in consulting, you've been given all the data by the client.
Yeah.
And the client is responsible. If the data is incorrect, the client has been, have to vet that data before sending
Correct.
it to you. But while you're working in an industry setup or an in-house tax team, you are responsible for the data
Right.
from start till you file it.
Right.
So there's a lot of interaction with cross-border teams across different countries and geographies. Also internally you interact with every department, because there's a lot of information comes from payroll, information comes from AP, AR, maybe a tax council
Yes.
teams. So there are a lot of interaction, and the responsibility level of responsibility here is much higher.
And also the
stakes
fact
are higher.
that the product is sold to different vendors, different customers.
Yeah.
So you have to get their data also.
Not for direct taxation,
Okay.
because it all
Okay.
comes up through the trial
Okay.
balance. But for if you're in indirect tax, maybe you will need all that data.
Okay, because these are software products.
Yes.
And they involve double taxation sometimes.
Yeah.
And India was growing.
Yeah.
Our companies started using all these softwares, right?
Yes.
What are some of the things that you learned at that time?
So some of the things I've learned in terms of, especially with my I wouldn't say first, my first in-house was with Altisource.
Yes.
Then with Autodesk, wherein
Which is a larger firm.
which was a very large firm, and we set up end-to-end of the in-house tax department, US tax
Here?
here in India.
Okay.
So it was a first type of experience for me as well, because it was lot of interaction with different departments, trying to gather that data. So the lot of time is spent on gathering data, like the right data, making the data usable for what you need to. So interacting with those different departments and understanding like how they pull the data, and because while you work at consulting, you don't see the background of how the client gives you the data, right?
Absolutely.
So that is the difference. I learned a lot about how, though it different departments, it's not easy to get that, and how we need to like work with different teams in order to ensure that we file it timely. Come what may, you have to file on a certain date. That is never like negotiated, right?
And this is all compliance, isn't it?
Yes, everything is
And
compliant.
everything goes to the shareholders, right? Or the board, pardon me.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah, like you mean
correct.
the 10K and
Yes,
things like
correct.
that.
And
yes.
if you're listed,
Yes.
you better be on time.
Absolutely.
So you learn how to work and measure deadlines, timelines.
right.
How's it like I've never worked in the tax department or anything. How are deadlines like for you at the time? How on private versus not, now that you're part of a listed entity?
Yeah.
Private versus public. What is the
both
difference?
both the companies that I've worked are
Yes,
both publicly
okay,
traded.
okay,
So
okay.
it's there are a lot of controls in
Okay.
place to ensure that we are ensuring accuracy and correctness while we gather the data. put it on our tax returns and file. So it is very important for us to stay on top of things and ensure at the same time making sure we meet those timelines that is set. Like we cannot go above the
Correct.
timelines.
My interesting aspect of the question is, if you're non-compliant, if one part of the data goes wrong, you can be pulled up, aren't you?
Yes.
And
yes.
you could, and there are enormous fines that a company pays,
Yeah.
right? And compliance is something that, did you have to learn compliance as a subject as well? Or do you have to work with the lawyers as a finance person?
I don't think so. That as you start working, I think it comes in your
DNA.
DNA
You just get that you
you
have
know
to do
when
this.
you're busy, you know when you have to file. So it's just very important for you to like just get started with it.
Okay.
And yes, if you cannot, I've never thought of missing a deadline. So I cannot speak about what happens. Like there are a lot of consequences if you miss your
Yes.
deadlines. But if you file something unintentionally, something was incorrectly filed, we can always file an amended returns or try and correct it with if it was not an unintentional.
Did you have any double taxation examples there that you had to handle?
Well, no, I don't. Like there are
Do people
different.
ask questions, or I mean, does that come
No,
in?
it doesn't come to me. So for US tax, it's more like there is guilty in some part of these
Yeah.
are new concepts that's come in. Once we have the TCJ Act, when I think back in 2017.
How do you stay up? I mean, these are things, I mean, you have to be up to date. I mean,
Yeah.
and I'm sure these documents will be 800,000 pages.
Yes.
How do you stay in touch with them?
So the best way to stay in touch is read a lot, like Google it. The best way is to Google it. And
to get a summary?
yes, and also the Big Fours have their webcast. They have.
Yes.
I don't know if it's allowable for students as such, but as professionals, we can subscribe to those webcasts. We can subscribe to their editions. Like they every quarterly they send out like what were the new updates that were made in the tax world, and so we get those updates. And also more like on LinkedIn, it's always up to date. Like somebody will keep posting, and you learn about it. You just see something and then Google it, you'll get a lot of document. Right now there's a lot of available resources on the internet which you can use a term and you will get a lot of data
A summary
to learn.
from it, yes.
Yeah.
When you moved to Uber, the challenges would have been so different. Is it only US tax that you handled, or multiple countries? And because
So that's an interesting question. Why I would say is US, though it's one jurisdiction, it will report everything that's happening in the entire world.
Yeah.
So though we are doing for the US, we'll have to report information from across. You know, Uber is a very big organization, and as like operations in many countries, so we do report everything what happens outside of US also into the US tax return.
Okay. You set up all this, and I want to ask you now straight away to the students, and I'm sure they'll start asking questions. Is BCom boring?
So I wouldn't say or agree to become
because we talked about things that current days children who watch a lot of Instagram and social media, although they start studying the subject, I think hey, this is so boring. But it is not. It's reading.
I don't think so.
You're running economies actually.
Absolutely. And when you do this, like you are in every part of every business or every world. Like I don't think it can ever get boring because I don't know.
You interact with global
as a
people?
student,
Yes.
when I would do those problem solving, when both the sides tie
Yes.
up, the happiness that you get cannot be like.
It's like magic, right? That you made.
Yes.
It's like you synchronized two aspects of a culture that didn't understand each other.
And
That's true.
accounting is needed everywhere, and it can never go like boring or never go out of sight.
You know, when you talk about depreciation and all that, you handle it from here also.
Yes, we do everything here.
And you also have to look at your driver partners there and everywhere.
No, we don't have to look at.
You don't have to look at that.
That is mainly done by our indirect tax.
Okay, but the interesting aspect is, like you said, you have to have communication skills where you talk with. I'm sure your finance team is across the world.
Yes.
So you talk to each and every one of them.
Yeah.
And what are some of the things that they do in India? What is the knowledge that we share to them? It's one consolidated place, Uber. But what does the India team offer to the world?
So India team brings the expertise. As I said, the consulting firms have done a good job.
Yes.
Setting up centers in India for about 25 years now. And the knowledge that people have got through these years is immense, right? Because as I said, now colleges have started offering these courses maybe. but a lot of comes through experience and the knowledge that people gathered. We have a community which can share knowledge and build this for the younger generation.
So, is there some certifications that you did in between?
Yes. So throughout, so you have to grow. You have to get some certification, either a chartered accounting.
Yes.
I know it's very difficult. There's CPA. There's enrolled agent. So enrolled agent is again one such professional accreditation.
Enrolled agent.
Enrolled agent. It is issued by the IRS, Internal Revenue Service in the US. So you take up examinations for this to get qualified as an enrolled agent. So this is a certification which will allow an enrolled agent to sign the tax return on behalf of the company, on behalf of a client.
This is interesting. Did you do this?
Yeah, I did that.
How many such certificates do you have?
So it is 3 papers, like 3 examinations, in-depth knowledge of ethics.
I didn't know that Indians could take this exam.
So previously this exam was conducted only in the US.
This is really interesting. And it's only in the US that they do it?
No, previously it was done only in the US. Now it can be taken in India as well.
Okay. And by the way, if you're on YouTube at this point of time, please like and subscribe to our channel. It's Mentors for Kids. All right. We've got Deepthi sending us a question. Hi Deepthi. Good. Last time you didn't put your name up. Now you have Deepthi MA. What certificate or software skills are important for someone who wants to take a job in taxation? Did you learn any software?
Yes, there are multiple softwares in tax. So there's, thanks first of all, nice question Deepthi. The certification is the enrolled agent certification that I say. It's not a certification, it's an accreditation. But then softwares, we use a lot of softwares to prepare a tax return. One such as, there are a lot of softwares from Thomson Reuters, which is called as One Source Income Tax. That is what we use. There's software from CCH, Vertex. But before you get into the job, you don't know which software you will use.
Yeah.
So that's not a requirement as such for you to get into a job. So when you get into a job, if you are good in your basics of what is debit, credit, and what is accounting, learning the technology is not that difficult.
So it's the knowledge of the tax that's important.
Yes.
And so you'd rather say take certifications there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are there certifications in tax? Or some short courses, would you say?
I don't think so that there is a shortcut like only certifications, but enrolled agents is something that you could take up. You could take CFA or CPA or some kind of, that will really help you build your career. I wouldn't suggest taking like one of a certification which will not help just for the sake of having a certificate, but do something that will really help in a long run.
Do you think they can join a CA firm that specializes in this and then?
Yeah, that will really help. So one of my point is also that you need to go out of your world, go more than your syllabus. Your syllabus may be certain extent, but then getting real life or real time data, real time work is really important. You can intern at some companies. It may not be a very exciting job, but no experience is wasted at any point. So it's something that you will learn at every point.
Vijayshree ma'am, I want to ask you a question on the changing aspect of job roles at this point of time. People study BCom, but because they're young and they're able to push themselves, they get into these delivery jobs, obviously, which is not bad. They can do it. That's great money. I met somebody from Tumkur recently, and obviously we all hail cabs and with riding apps and the Uber or whatnot. And these kids, some of them have studied extensively. They may have studied BCom, may have studied MCom.
Wow.
And that young age, they say that, okay, we went for a BCom interview, but the firm locally said they'll give us 20,000. But if I put in the same amount of effort, I'll get 45,000 if we did a job like, a ride-hailing kind of service. While great, what would you advise these kids to? How do you balance them? That's great. This is good. You're doing this part-time, but use the money to do something and get into roles of finance, tax. Is that something would you advise?
Definitely, because you spent a lot of amount of time in studying, and if you wanted to end up doing what you did now, you wouldn't have to go through that hassle, right? So when you spend so much time studying, I would tell that I know not many companies are paying well at the start,
point, yes.
but then that could be a starting point. As I said, even I started off like
Low salaries.
I would say my salary was 2,000 rupees.
Okay, I'm glad you read my mind. Guys, I was in England and I came back and I started earning 4,000 rupees a month.
Yeah.
And that was, and it shocked my entire family.
It is nothing like, it's nothing like you will stay in that for entire life, right?
But what changed is in 5 years, my salaries went up very well and I was well to do. So that's the same thing must have happened to you too.
Yes.
But why do they give up is the question. They don't see the longer term.
Yeah, maybe some financial burdens are there,
Yeah.
the point, but which we cannot control that
Correct.
for them. But as far as possible, stay close to the subject that you have studied and you want to build a career out of. And finance is a bigger world. If not in one company, you will definitely find some different type of an opportunity elsewhere, and build upon that. Like, keep looking for something that you really want to. What is your goal? Your goal is to like earn well. That will come with your experience. Try to build that experience.
I can definitely tell you that while you do the part-time jobs of getting 40,000, your salary, if you're good at your subject, can go at least 3-4 times up. As time in 15 years.
Yes.
And while some jobs take you here, this will really take you to leadership as well. That's something that I want to talk to you. Now you became a leader.
Yeah.
They can plan for leadership as well. They can run teams, right?
Yes.
That can happen. Okay, there's questions from Nagendra. This is from Nagendra from Moodibidre, GFGC. We had a question from GFGC Kolar. Now we have a question from GFGC Moodibidre. Are there opportunities to do tax for other countries, not just America? Because obviously the world is changing. Can I make a career there?
Yeah, great question, Nagendra. Yes, so India has become a hub wherein we are doing taxation for every country. Almost every country that I'm aware of. May not be direct taxation, there could be opportunities in indirect taxation, but UK, EMEA is a major player in this market.
Yes.
So you do have opportunities in this.
Okay.
And you can build a career out of it. Definitely, there will be companies which have clients from these countries and are supporting these countries. Not only clients, at where I'm working also, we have the teams working for rest of the world also other than the US. So it's a great place.
Interesting.
To be.
So you can either work for a tax firm that does rest of the world, or you could also work in a company that goes rest of the world, like what you do.
Yes.
Ma'am, interestingly, I met a lot of the clever BCom students who go to African companies and they take jobs in oil fields.
Okay.
There are international roles like that as well. This was last year when I was talking to some of my friends. Finance and tax are very open, isn't it?
Yes.
It's very vast. It's where you look for the opportunity. Do you need to create networks in this?
Absolutely.
You need to be part of a network? Would you say?
Absolutely. I think it will help for you to. I won't say like starting you need to have that network, but as you get into the world of corporates, you need to build that network around. Be in touch with people who are working on the similar grounds, or talk to people who have studied what you've studied, or be in touch with people and try to have some mentors or coaches that can guide you throughout.
Correct. Okay. We talked about leadership and we didn't delve into it, but I want to ask you about leadership because it's important. How did you grow from being just did you start off as a tax assistant, or what was your...
So I started as a tax analyst. That's the starting level.
Okay. And then how did you make your way up? Senior tax manager now? Or, right?
Yes.
How did that happen, ma'am? I mean, there's no planning for it. It's also the job that you do and you get appraisals.
And also, I would say smart working and hard working is one way. So there are a lot of people who work along you, right? You always have to be above someone for you to grow in your career. So it is just that you invest in yourself. It's not that you're investing in somebody else. You're investing in yourself to make yourself better.
Yes.
Communication is an important skill that will come anywhere and everywhere. And also to be able to talk to any level of the management. That is a skill that, I know many people, though they can communicate well, they are always very scared or shy when it comes to talking to leaders or, partners or anyone at a very high level. So come away from that, and it's okay, you can make mistakes. There are mistakes that do happen, but you do learn from them. So I grew in a way wherein I went from analyst to senior analyst to assistant manager, and then ultimately in a role that I got with Autodesk, wherein I was entrusted with having to build a team in India. So that
So you built the team in India? You had
Yes.
to hire?
Yes, I built the team in India, and even at this current company, we are scaling up and building the team in India.
How is that for you? I mean, hiring also means firing. Hiring also means, setting the precedent right.
Yes.
Right, expected. How did that change you in a way? Because nobody prepares you for leadership. It just happens.
Yes, so hiring is one of the toughest things at this time, I would say, because everybody wants to get into roles which is a leader role. Nobody wants to do a preparation work at some point, right? I am already reviewing, I'm already a manager, but me heading a department, I still do some preparation at
Yes.
point. So it's nothing to do with what you're doing, it's just that you need to be open to doing different things and learning from it. So it does change me. Like while hiring, I do get candidates who say that I'm already 2 years experience.
Can I
I'm
become a
not
manager?
interested in this.
Oh, wow.
Yes, there is little bit of the growth aspect where people are just want growth instantly.
Ma'am, I want to ask you this again, anonymous. The role of AI in accounting.
Very, very good
will
question.
Will it affect?
I think whoever
Will it affect
put this-
people you hire? Again,
no.
like I say, keep asking questions.
Yeah, this is a very
Please
good
send-
question, and I think whoever posted this should tell their name, because we are trying to bring in AI into tax, because AI has been brought up everywhere,
Yes.
and at this point, it's a lot of emphasis on AI. It will not replace jobs, but it will make jobs easier. How like a lot of data can be cleaned up with probably AI,
Correct.
or returns can be made more accurate with
Right.
AI. So we are also trying to bring in AI. A lot of emphasis is on that, but that doesn't mean it will take away somebody's job. Like when calculator was invented, did it take away somebody's job? So it did not. So like that.
Also, the cases, right? You can refer to a particular case by case, right? What happened previously in this particular subject. You can, the AI can help you summarize all that.
Yes, it can help you. I mean, we have not tested that, so I cannot comment much on that. But it will even we are learning that. It's a new topic, and it's something new that we want to bring into our day-to-day what we do. So as probably we start using, we'll probably.
Have you used any personally or in the company for yourself?
No.
Not yet.
We are bringing in more of
Bringing it
AI now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think automation is important.
We do a lot of automation with
Yes.
some RPAs,
Yes, RPA is
Alteryx,
already there. Yes.
Alteryx, and things like that.
But
wherein-
But in your case, do the kids understand the AI that they can do something with it?
No, that has to be like we have a separate team, which
Okay.
is an automation team. We give
Okay.
a requirement like this is the data,
Okay.
this is how it comes. We
Right.
spend like 10 hours to do this. So can you help, minimize this time on this?
I think all the strategy roles, you're in a strategic role because
Yeah.
you're advising, right? These roles can never be replaced by AI. AI can throw up a
Absolutely.
bunch of
Yes,
examples.
yes.
But unless the CEO or people in the board they'll sit in front of you and then ask you, what is your opinion, right? That is what they have
Yes.
to aspire to become, correct?
yes.
And your team will obviously use data from the AI to create these nice reports,
Right.
that you
Right.
can use to present.
Yeah.
So that's why they have to prepare for, right? Rather
They
than
have to prepare, yes. Even to use AI, you need to know proper prompts and commands, right?
Correct.
So you need to get better at how you can. For you to do that, you need to be good in your subject. You can use AI to your benefit rather than scaring away that AI is going to take your jobs.
So this is the thing, going back to Deepti, again she says, is there certifications for this of accounting
Yes.
and AI and all that?
I think there are. I
Okay.
think now that AI is coming into the world of tax, accounting, finance, there will be certifications, and it's a good thing if you can invest in doing that.
Yeah. And what about, we went through a curriculum that was rigorous in terms of understanding the financial ratios, the management
Yeah,
ratios. We also had to, obviously, different methods of depreciation that we learned, and we were taught cost accounting, management, the old school book accounting kind of situation. If you can summarize how live, how each, I mean, the 2.5 decade career of both of ours, perhaps you could summarize how BCom has it changed when you interview people? Do you see them coming up with ideas? How has the curriculum evolved, or has it not evolved, or is there something that we should do?
So the traditional basics still remain the same,
Okay.
right? Like we
Yeah,
need to
accounting is the same.
Yes,
Yes.
you need to be very strong in those, and the curriculum also invests a lot of time and effort into
Correct.
making the students understand
Yes.
this. Now more of it is moved towards how technology can be used in making these subjects more interesting. Like how technology can come and play, making these, for example, reporting, compliance world, how they can pull in this technology to make it easier for reporting purposes. But I do see the traditional way should still remain.
Because that's
as
the
it is.
foundation.
Yes, that is the foundation, and you have to be strong in that. Students have to focus on that.
Okay.
Like even for you to move up the ladder or move up to a better roles, you need to be very strong in foundation and to use that foundation to build up.
Okay, and the quality of the students that you get in the hiring, how is it across the last 10 years for you?
Quality, I would say a little bit have gone down in terms of.
I can vouch for that in the writing side as well.
Yeah.
They don't, like you mentioned, two things: reading,
Yeah.
writing, which is also important. You wrote your accounts by writing.
Right.
That's how you trained.
Yeah.
And then obviously the presentation.
Yeah.
And I would say from the basic foundational writing from my side, yes, it's gone down. But it's amazing to say that the quality is down.
The quality, I wouldn't say the quality. I would say that the expectations from
The
this
expectations are different, is it?
little different from what it used to be. I feel that previously, I think the generation which was there, which is from the previous generation, would want to do anything and everything. Money will follow, but then now it's more like I want a lucrative title, or I want something more interesting than this to do. I feel that they get bored very easily. This is very boring. I want something else.
Wow.
So those are a little bit, but I think these are some things where we need to educate as seniors in this industry to help them.
I think that's a fantastic thought process. But I need to end this podcast by asking you a couple of personal questions on: do you get time to read? How do you unwind? Give us some tips on what you do to relax.
I do read the tax laws. Like there are like a lot of laws that keeps changing, and I have to keep updated with what is happening. So I do read a lot of the
Case studies.
tax journals.
Okay.
Case studies. We do have some research. Like we
These
do
are
a lot of
international
research.
tax journals.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we do a lot of so there is a lot of research that goes into the work that we do as well, because by hearting so many tax laws is not possible.
You should by heart as well.
Yeah. And whenever we need some clarification of how to apply that tax work, we always do research. Like I do a lot of research on some tools.
Okay, that's on the business side. On the personal side, how do you unwind?
I have a family and I have 2 daughters. Most of my time is spent with them. Like they are both teenagers,
and that has its own set of issues and problems and joys.
Yes. So I do like spend a lot of time with them, trying to. And my daughter is just finished her 10th, going into 11th.
Has she got her results?
She's waiting for CBSE, waiting for her results. So a lot of discussions on. She's taking science and a lot of discussions on that.
I want to ask you, did you always want to take BCom when you were younger? Or was it we all took it because yes, we had to go somewhere maybe?
Yeah, I don't know. I was not very interested in science world. Maybe that's the reason which I wanted to take.
I'm glad you said that you continue to read these international tax journals to be up to date. Just to summarize this podcast, if everyone's listening in from a rural town, thank you for those questions. The takeaways from ma'am are that you got to have a great foundation. Your foundation must be very good in BCom. That means your tax laws, even if you like accounting, your accounting subject or your grasp of accounting should be very good. I also learned from this podcast that we can do something called an enrolled agent, which is a certification from the US tax.
It's an accreditation.
It's an accreditation.
Professional accreditation.
So we will put that link in. So it's called enrolled agent. That's a definite career path. And I also learned that if you study BCom, you can still go ahead and work with teams that advise, companies not just situated in the USA but all over the world. It can be Japan for all you know. It can be China or it can be Australia. You can advise these countries, and there are these accreditations there as well.
Yeah.
Right. So one of the ways to do it is prometric.com. These you could take exams there.
Yeah, enrolled
Right.
agent can be
Yeah.
taken through that.
And it happens in India. You don't have to travel to the US. That's a good thing. The last thing I learned is that AI is making an impact. It's not going to replace you, it's going to enhance you.
Yeah.
Just like supplements enhance people who cross a certain age, this is going to enhance your brain and you can work faster, better, right? And more importantly, I learned that leadership, regardless of what you've studied, you have to be prepared to take over leadership roles, which means your foundation should be good, your communication should be good, you have to be a people's person. And her story talks about that very theme that I just brought out, right? Thank you, Vijayshree ma'am,
Thank
for
you.
this.
I'm glad. Thanks for inviting me, and it was an interesting discussion.
And we'll have you back for more sessions. By the way, you people watching this from rural towns should come down to our office when we will plan that. We have a challenge running, by the way. We are going to give away a free laptop. If you go back to the LMS, we have you a case study where it's about GST. And if you can solve that case, we are going to give you a free laptop. We're doing all those things.
Wow.
And I hope you come back and give them a challenge on international tax. And we look forward to that workshop.
Sure, definitely.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Have a
Thank
good
you.
one.